All right, Brian, thanks for being here, man. We're kind of talking about a subject that I've been kind of interested in is Lyme disease, in which I think most people will be benefiting from hearing about more in depth about this topic, subject, whatever you want to say. But before we start getting the ball rolling, why don't you just do a little quick background of yourself, and that way the viewers and listeners kind of know what we're getting into here, I guess.
Okay, I'll give you a little brief one here.
Yeah, a little brief.
All right. Anyways, I am what they call a tick and Lyme disease prevention specialist,
Okay.
which kind of makes me like a consultant, a conference speaker. And I also help companies with outdoor workers, especially, and outdoor enthusiasts with some unique and cost effective repellents. So it's kind of unique. And then I call myself the tick terminator, which in itself is just crazy. I mean, when people go to the website, they'll see my logo. It's a tick in the shape of a hand grenade, which just, yeah, I can't even say it without smiling. You know what I mean?
That's a cool concept, man.
Oh, it's an awesome logo. I didn't make it myself. I wish I could have credit for it, but I'm not that smart to come up with something this ingenious. But,
So what got the ball rolling for you to go down this road, and how did you get started into it? Is this something just growing up outdoors or what?
I've always kind of had a weird fascination with ticks.
Okay.
And, even when I was a little kid, I live in Michigan. Okay.
Okay.
And, I was born in Upper Michigan, and my dad was a state cop, so we moved down to Lower Michigan. But my grandparents lived in Upper Michigan, so we travel up there about 500 miles, probably about once a year to visit them. And they had ticks at their place because they lived in the woods. We didn't have them back home when I was a kid down in Lower Michigan. So to me, it was kind of like a novelty, visiting grandma and grandpa. You think, hey, what kind of cartoons do they have, when you're a little kid? And then they had these little creatures called ticks. Yeah. And they were kind of like mosquitoes, but they crawled on you and you couldn't feel them. And when they bit you, you didn't even know it either. But in those days, in the 60s and 70s, we never had a problem with them, ever. They were just a little nuisance.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why not a problem back in then?
Well, I mean, they would bite us, but I don't know. Nobody even talked about Lyme disease or any of the other tick-borne diseases. They were just kind of a nuisance because actually Lyme disease wasn't really given a name until the mid-70s in New England, where there were some young adolescent kids that had this weird disease in this one community, especially.
Like in Connecticut?
I say the parents. What's that?
Lyme, Connecticut?
Exactly, yeah, in Lyme, Connecticut. That's where it got the name.
Yeah.
So, it's been around for a long time, hundreds of years, but that's where it got the name. Right there.
Well, so, I tried to do a little research on them before we talked today. That way I could halfway speak and halfway intelligent, I guess, about it. But,
sure.
Yeah, so I don't come in here completely dumbfounded. But so, like you just said, they started in Michigan, but wasn't there something that they moved, or when I say they, I'm not sure, but they were moving either deer or moving cattle or something across Michigan, and maybe Wisconsin, and like all these ticks started showing up along the interstates through there. And then all of a sudden, I guess they took all these deer over towards the East Coast, and the East Coast just kind of blew up with Lyme disease compared to the rest of the U.S. Is that sort of kind of?
Well, you got two locations correct. The East Coast, pretty much New England, that's kind of like ground zero. That's the worst case of Lyme disease in the United States. And you're talking about New England, you're talking about Massachusetts, and then above it, you got Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and then you got New York. And then underneath that's Pennsylvania. And underneath Massachusetts, you got Connecticut, Rhode Island. You draw a circle around that, and that's pretty much the worst part in the country. Incidentally, during the last 25 years, they've seen a 300% increase in Lyme cases in that area. Now, where I live in the Midwest, in Upper Michigan, you draw a circle around Upper Michigan, and Michigan in general, and then Minnesota, Wisconsin, down into Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, and that area. We're number two. During the last 25 years, we've seen a 250% increase in Lyme cases.
Really?
So that's those are the worst places. They're around other places too, but then you have other diseases, like babesiosis, leishmaniasis, tularemia, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Powassan, and alpha-gal syndrome, which we can get into later too. But that's kind of the worst places for them. If you look on a Lyme disease map.
Okay. Well, this is a good place to start. Well, how did Lyme disease originate? I mean, did it literally just come from ticks, or was it something? I read a couple of conspiracy theories that we can go down, and that some.
Yeah.
I think there was a book by I think it's just called Bitten. I can't remember the author of it, but
Yep.
I think it was a girl, and she actually talked about how it could be made by the military and
Yeah.
warfare. And I think that's going kind of far out there based on, I didn't read the book obviously, but that's kind of what the reviews and some people were talking about, the critiques, I guess, that might be a little far out there. But anyway.
Yeah.
So,
They do say that it's been around for hundreds of years. Gosh, I can't remember where I have it right now, but I was, looking that up, and it goes way back, hundreds and hundreds of years,
mhm.
where people have had these conditions that now kind of relate to what Lyme disease is. I'm not a Lyme disease expert. I call myself a tick and Lyme disease prevention specialist.
I see.
Is really my forte, if you want to say it. I'm all about the prevention.
Okay.
But I know a fair amount about Lyme, but I had actually a friend. What really kind of spurred me on here recently in the last 10 years was a friend of mine had a really bad case of Lyme. And I don't know if you're familiar with anybody that's ever had Lyme disease.
A few people.
It is just awful.
Yeah.
People die from it even.
Yeah, it sounds like it's kind of case by case scenario, but I've heard some people, if you catch it early enough and you take the antibiotics, that you can kind of beat it, correct? But if you don't, you don't really understand, that's when it kind of starts messing with your joints and your immune system, and it can go
absolutely.
I read one report, one guy was in a hospital for over a year with it. He just couldn't get rid of it.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. People have spent anywhere from $500 to literally up to $500,000 on trying to get rid of it. Because and everything in between. But anyways, a few years ago, probably about 8 years ago, I had a friend of mine that was really battling a bad case of it. At the same time, I was incidentally doing some of my original research, and just for kicks, you know what I mean? Because my wife hates him, of course.
Sure.
And I was just trying to learn more about him. And then when he got the Lyme disease, or maybe it was a rebirth of it, or rejuvenated again, he was going through. This is a guy that's in good shape. He was a bodybuilder in his younger days. He said, Brian, I was just curled up in the bedroom on the floor in the fetal position, just painful. And he couldn't even open a bottle of water. He said he was so weak. Now he has since gotten some help, but you were right there that I want to allude to what you just talked about there. The biggest thing I talk about is early detection and early treatment. You're exactly right. If somebody gets bit, I usually say this toward the end, but since we already brought up, I'll bring it up now and probably even again.
Yeah, that's fine.
If somebody gets bit by a tick, you never see a tick with a little L on their back saying, "I got Lyme disease." Okay, of course not. So you got to treat them all like they're going to be a problem. But sometimes you get bit by a tick and you have no problem at all. None, zero. Not all of them are, full of Lyme disease or any other tick-borne disease. But if they give any kind of bad reaction, let's say if that bite swells up, if it gives the famous bullseye rash, then that's for sure a problem. They say about 40 to 50% actually give that bullseye rash. But let's say they don't give a bullseye rash. My little niece got little rashes all over her body. She was like 4 or 3. And her mom noticed that, and she went in and she got antibiotics. But having the achy joint, the flu-like symptoms that you talked about there is exactly right. And if you have those symptoms, just think about this. COVID, since we're in the COVID area, COVID is going to be respiratory, in your chest,
sure,
where a tick-borne disease is not going to be there. But other than that, they may have very similar, achy joints, flu-like symptoms, just feeling really crappy. They're going to be similar. But talking to a doctor, let's say if you know you got bit, okay, sometimes people get bit, they don't even know it. So if you know you got bit and have those symptoms, then you need to see a doctor within days or a week or something like that. And then if they get on antibiotics, typically, which is doxycycline. Now, I'm not a doctor here, and I don't play one on TV or
Oh,
anything.
I'm not either. Don't worry.
Yeah. So, anyways, like you said, early treatment, early detection, early treatment is absolutely the most important thing, because tick-borne diseases never get better on their own. They only progressively get worse. Is typically what I've ever seen and read about. So,
Yeah. I mean,
any kind of bad reaction in the beginning is so important to don't ignore that.
so
Have it take care, and make sure that doctor, if you know you got bit by a tick, and if that doctor says, "Oh no, that's okay," well, you go to another doctor then, because people that have bad Lyme disease cases a lot of times didn't know they got bit by a tick,
yeah.
and they end up going to about 10 different doctors a lot of times until somebody finally diagnoses it correct, because Lyme disease is called the great imitator. It can imitate like fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, numerous other things, because of the way it comes out, and makes you feel. So it's
Interesting.
it's it's
I
a
didn't know that.
nasty.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
Well, so all right. So if you catch it early enough and you get the antibiotics, you might be okay. Correct.
Yeah. Yep. In
But
most cases, that's going to take care of it. Yep.
so first thing, if you see the bullseye target, you should immediately go see or the bullseye thing, you should go see a doctor quick, right?
Yep. Yep.
But if you don't have it and you think you may have gotten bitten, do doctors kind of pass it off and say, no, you probably don't have it? Or or do doctors not want to diagnose you with that right off the bat, do you think? Or is it more of just, we'll figure it out later until you start developing symptoms? I mean, what do you think?
Well, a lot of times what happens is people, it depends on where you live too.
Okay.
If you live in the tick areas like East Coast and those two spots that I'm talking about,
Yeah.
where doctors are even more familiar with that than they are in, let's say, Arizona, for example. I'm not knocking doctors any place. I'm just saying, that they're more familiar with it in certain areas. They may notice, you may tell them that you got bit, and it may show some may not show the signs that the Lyme disease.
Okay.
It's not uncommon. I'm not a doctor here, kid, but it's not uncommon for sometimes doctors to put somebody on that doxycycline anyways, just to make sure.
Okay.
Even if they don't have everything, because you can't test for Lyme disease in the first week or two. It needs to be in the system for several months, and then it's too late. So they have to do their diagnosis based on symptoms, like achy joints, flu-like symptoms, sometimes a bad reaction. I mean, people have even gotten their eyes go funny. They may get brain fog.
Ooh, I wanted to bring that up a little bit. Yeah, that.
Yeah, there's numerous different things like that they can play into the factor here. So they're not all exactly the same.
So why is the East Coast and like the Northeast seem to be the most common areas, rather than out west? Just because it's cold? I mean, does the ticks die in the winter? I mean, is it because of the environment? I mean, what's the deal? Why does the East Coast seem to be the hotbed of it all, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's not because the ticks don't die in the winter, because I mean they dive down under during in the fall. I mean, they're pretty much around from, let's say, March to November. Okay, especially in the winter in the colder climate. So no, I'm not sure what state are you in.
I'm in Virginia, so
okay. I mean, they have plenty of problems there in Virginia too.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys get some snow on occasion.
Sure.
And you're going to have your insects and bugs probably about the same months as we do, March through November, and then they taper off some for the winter. Then they come out again. But they don't die in the winter because they dive down under the leaf litter. And then in our area, snow is a wonderful insulator. I mean, a couple inches of snow and they're insulating, no problem at all. And God gave them some special little enzyme that acts as antifreeze, so it also helps them, survive the winter. So there's hardly any die-off from ticks in the wintertime. Virtually none.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wish they would, but they don't.
Okay.
So,
well, you're a prevention specialist, so let's get into like the prevention of it all. So we just kind of got a little bit background of it. But okay, so for example, let's say I know, I've been camping a handful of times in my life, and you get home, you get your buddies, hey, look at me, you got any ticks on me or whatever. But what if you're out there by yourself and you get one stuck on the middle of your back? What's the process? I mean, do I take like a back scratcher and try to get it off? I mean, my stepdad, he raised foxhounds for a while, and he would burn ticks off the dogs, and get them off like that. Just take a cigarette lighter and just burn them. So not the dog, the tick, but
Yeah.
I mean, what's the best way to prevent them? I mean, what do you do if you're out there, if you get one on you? I mean,
well, actually, if you get one on you, let's say that, then I'll talk about prevention.
Okay.
If you get one on you, actually think about this even. The way you take a tick off is also important too. I mean, you think about it. I mean, we have all just grabbed them by their fingers and pulled them off. Now think, I have a little tick that I can show you. Grab here real quick.
This will be on YouTube.
Of course, I have a tick like this,
Oh, nice. Looks like a dog toy.
Yeah. So anyways, it's got all the 8 legs, like all ticks have. But let's say it's stuck on you. The best way to take a tick off is to grab it the closest to the skin as possible. You don't want to really grab it by the body, but kind of think about somebody grabbing you around their stomach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're kind of more apt to heave, or basically puke.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with a tick, because the quicker you get a tick off, the better also. That's why it's important during tick season to check yourselves every day, because you never know when they're going to be on there. The longer they're under, the more apt they are to give you something bad.
Sure.
Some ticks can give it in a few minutes. Other ticks can give something, in 24 hours or more. So it depends on numerous factors. But grabbing it at the very base and pulling it straight up. Don't spin it around. Don't play with it a lot. Here's the thing. You don't want to tick off a tick and get them mad. All right. So what you do is you want to take them off as gently as you can. So therefore, they're a lot less apt to puke in you the bad stuff while you're taking them off.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you're making them mad, they're apt to puke the bad stuff in you, which you don't want. So take them off gently, and then if you have it's not a bad idea. You can even save the tick if you want. There's plenty of places where you could send them in, if you really want to, and have it looked at, and they could tell you if it had Lyme disease. Yeah. I mean, I have those on my website where my website has all kinds of good information. And that's called the Tick Terminator. But anyways, so taking a tick off, a fine tip tweezers is a good thing to grab it right to the bottom. Or there's another little thing called a tick key that you can take them off with there too.
What is a tick key? I've never heard of that. It's
essentially a little round thing that the tick pops into, and you just slide it right off.
Oh.
It's kind of cool how it's tapered like that. I carry one with me in case I ever need it. But yeah, being gentle with them, and then watching that tick bite. Yeah. See if you have any bad reaction. Now, here's the other thing: is in the springtime, which we're approaching here now, the little ticks are in our areas are going to come out. All right, and they're the size of they were born last summer. All right. And they're going to come out this next spring the size of a poppy seed. They're so small you can barely even see them on your shoelaces,
really,
let alone your skin. And they say that because they're so small, you're a lot more apt to get bitten by them because you didn't notice them the size of a full-grown tick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important for prevention. And I recommend my number one thing for prevention I recommend is called permethrin. If you've ever heard of that before.
I don't think I have. What is that?
That is the industry standard best thing you could possibly use for prevention. Permethrin has been around since about 1973 when it was created. It was created for farmers actually could spray it on their crops. Farmers can spray it on their cattle. Doctors use it for lice. On people, and these are each different formulations, and the fourth formulation is to spray on your clothes. Mm-hmm. And that's what I use it for. I spray it on my shoe, socks, pants, and clothes. And the cool thing about the way permethrin works, Chris, is this, and I'll compare it to DEET because I know you heard about DEET.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, everything. A lot of people have DEET DEET is wonderful. Created in 1945 for the military. The way DEET works is that when it's on your skin or your clothes or whatever, a mosquito or little flies come close to you, and their little antennas sense that smell, okay? That odor, that aroma, and it tells the little mosquito that there's no blood there. So then they fly away. All
Oh,
right.
I see.
So that's the way that works. And it works great. It's one of the best things out there for skin. It's no problem. The way permethrin works is different. It's called a contact repellent. And what that means is they don't notice until they come in contact with it. So what happens is, let's say, I mean, I've watched this happen to me, and to me, it's, I mean, the tick terminate. I mean, this is cheap entertainment, you know. when, when I actually, I'm watching a tick crawl up my pants, and every step, you know, there's pants that are treated with, you know, just sprayed on.
Yeah.
And every step it takes, it's driving its nervous system crazy. It can't stand it. All right.
Right.
And it eventually, if they're on me for a minute or longer, they say it'll eventually do them in. It not only repels them, but it'll actually kill them too eventually.
Okay.
Which is really cool. It doesn't bother us at all. So it's wonderful because obviously they're made totally different than us.
Yeah, for sure.
I have actually watched them fall off my pants before. And I say,
wow.
you know, it didn't bite me then. I actually watched a little black fly land on my thigh a couple of years ago. And this was really entertaining because this thing was, you know, like it was tiptoeing on my pants, on my thigh, like it just landed on hot coals, you know?
Yeah.
Because to them, it feels like an electric grid. It drives them nuts. And it's kept tiptoeing around. And I swear, if that thing could talk, they would say, oh, what the heck did I just land on here? You know, I've never touched this before. So it eventually flew off. And again, I said, cha-ching, you know, I won.
Got him.
Because it didn't bite me, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So that's how permethrin works. And it's here, another cool thing about permethrin is you don't have to put it on every day. I treat my clothes and stuff for like 3 months at a time. Really? I can go up to 6
months at a time.
Yeah, because I spray it on there and those molecules stick to the fabric, and even through the laundry, it still stays on for, let's say, weeks and months at a time. So it's great. I mean, if you're a camper, I mean, for campers, anybody, outdoor workers, to treat their clothes with that, it's just the coolest thing because you don't have to do it every day like you would with DEET, you know? So DEET is for the skin, permethrin is for clothes and gear. I mean, tent, backpack, you know, all kinds of different things like that.
Is permethrin pretty well known? I mean, I've never really heard of it before. I mean, is it a big mark? I mean,
it's not known enough.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not.
No, that's why I got the big mouth. And when
it's that great of a product, yeah. I mean, we got to get the word.
I mean, our military treats all their clothes in a special way that we can't do as civilians for decades. They've been using it for a long time. It's pretty much retail now in the last 20 years.
Okay.
Well, we'll round it off at that. I mean, maybe a little bit longer, but I mean, when I was doing my research on this a few years ago, when my buddy was going through such a hard time, I was thinking, okay, how do I get these ticks out of my house? You know, how do I stop them from coming to me? And then I bumped into permethrin. I thought, oh, here it is, man. This is what I've been looking for. And I've been a spokesman for it ever since. And I work with a manufacturer now. And of course, I have it on my website.
Sure.
But that's what I really promote a lot. You know, I work with a lot of companies that say power companies, you know. You got linemen walking through grass to get to the power pole on the right of way. And they're going to spray their clothes down with it because, you know, I mean, especially a lineman. I mean, they're at the top of the food chain, I guess, if you want to say, as far as essential workers.
Oh yeah, for sure. I got a buddy who's a lineman, and yeah, I respect the hell out of him. He goes out there in the shit, for lack of a better word. It's like, man, that's something I don't want to do.
The worst.
Yeah. Why?
To give us power. You know, our whole lives start with our power and electricity. So, anyways, they're a big one for that. I work with a lot of the power companies like that, and then also vegetation management. The people who keep the power lines clear. You know, the vegetation of the trees and stuff like that. They're going out there cutting it down and keeping them clear. So those are a couple of my big customers, and also backpackers, hikers. You know. People like that they can spray their clothes and their tents, their gear, that kind of stuff, and be good for weeks and months at a time. So anybody, any outdoor enthusiast, even people in the spring here that come out, they got cabin fever. And when the snow starts to melt, they're going out there looking for mushrooms, or just walking in the woods, or looking for sheds, from deer horns or whatever,
Yeah, I got a friend, and we were talking about, I was telling him what I was doing tonight with the podcast and who I had on, and he hikes, from time to time, and he's nervous about, getting ticks, or he's not, he doesn't want to get ticks on him, obviously, or whatever.
Yeah,
But mainly, what is that? Is there a Rocky Mountain tick or a Lone Star tick? And that if you get,
yeah,
it can mess you up from eating red meat for the rest of your life.
yeah. A Lone Star tick that has a little white dot on its back. Yeah,
Oh, is
and
that
that's that's in your area. We don't have that disease in our area as much. But
really?
yeah, it's more or less in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and the Eastern Shoreboard, in the southeastern shore of the United States is where that is. And what that means is it's called alpha-gal syndrome, that the Lone Star tick can give somebody if they get bitten. All right. And what happens is that's a allergic reaction to red meat. They could get bit, and let's say a couple of days later they're eating a steak someplace,
Sure.
and all of a sudden they could have a bad allergic reaction. They could even maybe go into anaphylactic shock, and they don't even know what it is. All right.
Sure.
No, I don't think anybody's ever died from it.
Okay.
But it's pretty miserable, for a while. And then I think, I'm not an expert on this, but it goes away a little bit, and then maybe a couple of weeks later they have another steak, and it happens again. So, and hopefully they can correlate that, to the eating the steak and seeing a doctor. And sometimes some people are allergic to red meat then for the rest of their life.
So it kind of comes and goes. Like you might be okay
the
next week.
Only eating the red meat.
Yeah.
In some shape or form. But in a lot of cases, sometimes it's a lifetime thing. You're done with red meat.
Oof.
I know. Think about that,
I mean, for those meat eaters out there, I mean, I'm a meat eater, but I mean, yeah, that's what we were talking about. It's like, man, I like red meat,
Oh, yeah, we all do, Yeah. It's very common, unless we're vegetarians. But
yeah, not all of us. But
yeah, but that could definitely be a factor. So, I mean, like him, I recommend, using permethrin.
Okay.
To treat their stuff before they go out. It's best. I mean, the way I use it is I promote a permethrin. I mean, you can get permethrin at a lot of different places, Walmart, Cabela's,
okay.
Bass Pro Shop type places. And all I've used theirs, and they're fine. They're good. And they're good for, they call it 6 weeks and 6 washes or 6 laundries.
Yeah.
Right? And I work with a company that has a very unique brand of permethrin. Actually, it's the only one in the market that puts you in control of how long it will last, because it's the only concentrate that you can get out there, and you mix it up yourself at home. So that's why it's good for the individual, especially where they would do that. You could mix it to last. Let's say you got a family and you got kids going to camp for a week. Mm-hmm. All right. You could treat all their clothes for just 3 weeks. You don't need to have it the whole full 6 weeks, because those clothes are just going to be for a week. So you'd use the lowest amount and treat them for 6 weeks or 3 weeks. And let's say you're going camping, or let's say you're going to be someplace a lot of times for several months. You could treat your clothes for 9 weeks or 12 weeks or up to 24 weeks. You decide by how much you mix of this concentrate. It's kind of like dish soap. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is it ready to ask? It's like a powder, or how do you mix it? I mean,
yeah, it's a liquid.
Okay.
That you just pour in a little cup, and then you put that cup in a 32-ounce bottle that comes with it. Mm-hmm. It's right on my website there. But anyways, yeah, you decide how long it's going to last by how much you mix in there. So it puts you in control. Nice. So if you're a permethrin user, anytime you use any kind of concentrate, it will cut your permethrin costs by like 50%, because you're mixing. You're not buying water. You're buying a concentrate, with a mixing bottle and a little cup. It comes with everything in a box. So it's
yeah. Well, that's definitely the way to go if you're an outdoor enthusiast and you see yourself out there a lot. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So you decide how long it's going to last. Then you spray it on your clothes. I tell people, spray it on your clothes. And it's best to do it outdoors. I even have a video, a little bit about that on my website too, of course. But you spray it on your clothes, let them dry overnight. You want to spray it on there so they get damp. You can see the color change, like your jeans or your shirt, how they start to get damp, a little color change. And then let them dry overnight. I mean, technically, you could spray them on and go right then. You could go out with them wet, but it's just more convenient. I like to think, anyways, is spraying them all like that.
Yeah.
And the nice thing also about it is spraying your shoes too. Don't forget your shoes.
Of course.
Because a lot of little ticks will get on your shoes because it's close to the ground.
Oh,
so
yeah.
So do you know where you're going to get ticks at? Where do you think they're going to get on you easiest or first?
Probably your shoes, your ankles or something, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because remember, ticks do not drop out of trees. They don't fly. They don't jump. Yeah. They're going to be typically on vegetation about for your knees on down, approximately, like grass and brush like that. Okay.
That makes
sense. They're just opportunists. They're just sitting there. They have 8 legs. So about 6 of those legs they grab onto the blade of grass, and the other 2, the top 2, sit out there like little radars. Okay. And they're sensing what's coming by. They smell our CO2. All right. And I mean, to them, that's the dinner bell, man. The CO2, they love that. That's food to them. That's blood. So then if something comes by, let's say like us or some little animal, they just latch on. They don't even ask. I mean, they're hitchhikers. I mean,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know they're selfish, but
yeah, they're selfish.
And then they start crawling around looking for a place to eat.
Do ticks have any predators? I mean, what's eating ticks? Is that bug?
They definitely they have enemies too. I got stories about everything.
That's cool. Yeah. I'm curious. Like I was like, is anything? I mean, what's attacking ticks? I mean, do they have any enemies?
Yeah, well, they do have enemies too. That's one of my presentations. They have enemies like ants and spiders, praying mantis, grasshoppers, centipedes, and some birds. All right. Now they also the poultry family. Like chickens and guinea hens and turkeys. They all like them too.
Yeah.
There was a study done in the state of Maine a number of years ago, and because they have a really bad tick problem up there, and they were figuring that the turkeys, when turkeys go through the woods, I mean, they have a voracious appetite. I mean, they go through there like a gall darn vacuum cleaner, sucking up everything. They're eating the ants and the spiders and praying mantis and the ticks too. So what their theory was that the turkeys are eating a lot of the ticks' natural enemies as they're going through this. So the ticks have less enemies, so they're able to thrive even more because of the turkeys.
That makes sense.
Who would have thought that?
Yeah.
Also, another animal that likes to eat them is a possum. All right. Possums are innocent little animals. They don't hardly harm anything unless they go into somebody's garbage, But they're never going to attack anybody. They just kind of, they're very nocturnal, of course, so they just hang around. And they go through the grass and they get ticks on them, okay?
Yeah.
And possums are kind of like cats, where cats are, a cat will groom themselves, okay?
Sure.
Where a dog does not, we got to clean a dog if you have a dog. Yeah. But cats will groom themselves. And possums groom themselves also. So what happens is the possums are, they lay back and they say, oh, look at these little brown spots, baby. It looks like chocolate. So they're munching on them. They eat them by the thousands, and they just love ticks. So you ever see a possum out there say, hey, baby, go and eat all the ticks you want,
Is it? So let's say the possum's eating a tick with Lyme disease. I mean, would that Lyme disease transfer over into the possum from eating it, you think, or no? Or any other?
No.
Bird.
Animals are a little different. I mean, a dog can definitely get Lyme disease from being bitten by a tick.
Right.
But not all. Obviously, animals are going to get treated differently than us. Deer, get a lot of ticks on them, of course.
I've heard that. I've seen pictures of it. It's rough. Especially it's like a frisbee on them, man. It's like they're all covered in just one little. Wow.
Some awful pictures.
Yeah.
Because I mean, let me tell you, the life cycle of a tick is basically a female tick gives birth to about 1,000 to 5,000 ticks at a time.
Damn.
All right. I know. I
didn't realize it was that.
That's just way too many.
Yeah.
So anyways, then they're in the shape of an egg. All right. In the middle of the summer. So they're on the forest floor. Okay. They break out of the egg in a couple weeks. And then, like any newborn, they're looking for some food.
Yeah.
All right. Now, it depends on where they're at. If they're in the south, do you have a lot of white-footed mice in your area? Or do you have skinks, like little lizards, or both?
Probably more mice, and I've never seen a lot of lizards like that. What you're talking about, but
Okay.
probably more
They
mice.
call them skinks, not skunks, but skinks.
I've never heard of
Those
that.
are more in the southern states. Then you're
Okay.
kind of not quite
Yeah, I'm like
south,
right.
obviously.
I'm like right in the middle of right to touching almost North Carolina, Tennessee border, part of Virginia. So
Okay, I can see that then. Okay.
yeah.
So, anyways, they since they're on the ground and they're tiny, microscopic, they want to get on something, so they're going to get on usually a white-footed mouse. Okay.
Okay.
So they're feeding on this white-footed mouse, and the germs or the pathogens from that white-footed mouse that goes into the tick is actually what gives them Lyme disease or any other tick-borne disease. They're not born with any diseases; they get it from their host. Okay.
Okay.
So they stay on that for a couple of days, then they drop off. They do whatever ticks do, which ain't a whole lot. You know? So since now they're born with only 6 legs, so when they get off, they're going to molt into the next series, and they're going to grow 2 more legs. And then they come out now in the north. They're going to come out in the spring, and probably in your area, going to come out in the spring.
Yeah.
And they're going to, and if they got Lyme that summer before from that white-footed mouse, the next spring when they come out, they're going to be a nymph-sized tick, the size of a poppy seed, like I was talking about.
Right.
And they only eat one time a year. Most of these ticks that I'm talking about here. All right. There's other ones that have different eating habits, but the bulk of them, we'll talk about these ones here that are in your area and my area mostly.
Okay.
But anyways, so then they look for the host. It could be, us or some little varmint that has blood. Then they eat on that for a couple of days, and they drop off. Then they molt in the next series that fall, that winter, and come out the next spring as an adult. And as an adult, they're going to be bigger. Of course, then they're going to get on something bigger than 2. Typically, it could be us or a deer. They get on that deer, and they feed on the deer, and then they mate, and then they ride the deer the rest of the winter. The next spring, the male gets off, and he dies. The female gets off, and she gives birth to anywhere between 1,000 to 5,000 babies, and then she dies too. So the life cycle is about 3 years.
And so they just keep moving. They start small, then just keep moving to bigger.
Yep.
Way, I guess, and then
they
just fall off and die.
That's most of the ticks. That's like the black-legged tick, which we call the deer tick. That's a Lone Star tick. The American dog tick. Those are the popular ones. You have other ticks that are soft-bodied ticks that are going to be out west, and let's say in Colorado, New Mexico, maybe some of those states where these soft ticks, they nest in varmint nests. So let's say a nest of squirrels or woodchucks or something like that. Okay. And let's say somebody's out backpacking. Here's an example. This was told a lot. They're backpacking and they see this old, we'll call it a trapper shack, that was built 100 years ago or whatever. And they say, hey, I'm going to go in and stay there that night. Well, a lot of times they will have little varmints that they may not have noticed that are nesting in that place. So they're sleeping at night, and these ticks will crawl down at night and feed on these people for maybe 20 minutes or so, and then go back up, and you didn't even know you got bit.
Sounds scary, man.
I know. They're the sneaky ones.
What the heck?
I know. So that's pretty crazy out there.
I didn't know ticks.
So that can happen.
I didn't know ticks were that smart.
I know. Those ones are. That's pretty crazy. But that's not most of my area is all the rest of the ticks. The hard body ticks. There's about, how many is there? About 7. What was that?
How many
species in the world? About 800 different species of ticks in the world.
I would have never even guessed close to that.
We only have about 50 maybe here in the United States at the most, probably. I would have never
said 50. I mean, I just literally learned about that Lone Star tick maybe today or yesterday. So,
yeah.
So I figured it was just 2. One's, yeah. Hey, oh man, it's kind of hard. I mean, we're talking about, you're talking about repellents and stuff. I mean, for people who have pets, I mean, can they put that stuff on their dogs? Or
they can, but there are so many other good things to put on dogs.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, lots of stuff. I mean, they can talk to their vet. I'm not a dog. I don't have a dog. I'm not really a dog person, but a lot of people ask me about that. I said, "Can you use it on there?" Yeah, but I say there's a lot of other stuff that is even more convenient to use. There's tablets they can eat that,
Oh,
they can have collars that they can. You don't want to use anything that the dog uses. I mean, some people do that, and I don't recommend that at
mhm.
all. Where they'll put a dog collar on their on their legs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not bare legs, but pants or something like that to keep
Sometimes I
ticks
always
off.
wonder those tick collars actually are working or not, or is it just kind of a gimmick, I guess.
I don't know. I think they work. I know the chewables
Yeah,
work
I've
pretty
heard
well for
I've heard
dogs.
I've heard good things out of those.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard a lot of good things out of those. I think sometimes when they bite the dog, then they die. So in other words, because dogs can really get it. I mean, dogs start if they get Lyme disease, they lose their motor skills. I mean, like their rear end is just flopping around. They can't walk right. Uh, so yeah, it can be bad for them, and they need to be treated then too.
Do ticks serve any good purpose to nature besides, I mean, just getting on people and giving us Lyme disease? I mean, do they
Part of the food chain.
yeah, I mean, do they actually do anything that well, I mean, why do we not try to eradicate ticks? When I say we, not me, I'm not trying, but I guess, I read about people maybe trying to do controlled burns or something and try to get them out. And I mean,
That's not a bad idea, but I mean, they're really tough to get rid of. Really tough to get rid of.
because there's so many, there's just no way.
Yeah. So I mean, thank goodness that up in Vermont and Maine, they're having a really severe problem with what they call a winter tick. Now, those don't harm people very much, but they're just devastating the moose herd up there. And I mean, what they do is the ticks I was talking about for us, like the deer tick, the Lone Star tick, and the American dog tick.
Mhm.
Those are usually on for a few days, then they get off, and
Okay.
then the next year they have feet again. Well, the winter tick gets on these moose in like September, and they stay on them the whole winter in different stages. They molt the next stage, they're still staying on the moose. So they literally end up having thousands of ticks on them. I mean, it's devastating them. And the moose can't groom themselves, like a cat can or like a possum can. So what they do is they're trying to rub them off, on trees and whatever, and they're losing their furs. So then they get down to their white fur, and they call them ghost moose because they look kind of ghostly because they're so white.
Yeah.
And the calves, the babies, the calves of the moose are really affected badly by it, and they're losing them. I mean, they're dying because they can't handle so many thousands of ticks. They're just sucking their blood, and it's a serious topic up there.
Yeah. And
And
there's just no way to help them out at all that they know of.
yeah, I mean, like you were saying, how do you control burn a whole
Yeah.
forest?
Well,
A million acres.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's just one area. There's other areas of the country too that's bothered. But I know I've read a lot about it up there, especially, and the people have told me that live there. That's really a shame when it's hurting wildlife to that extent.
Well, I don't guess. I mean, a moose is a endangered species. I mean, that I know of. I mean, I could be 100% wrong on that, but I guess if it got to the point that they were almost thinning out the species, a moose species, I mean, maybe some outdoor experienced people would like to try to get in there and hey, we
Yeah,
maybe we should try control burns, or maybe there's got to be something out there that can start killing them off. I don't know,
I
but
don't.
if it got to that point, so
Yeah, they're not a endangered species up there. I know because they still have moose hunts.
oh, okay,
Definitely, yeah. My brother lives up there too. He's not a moose hunter, but yeah, they definitely have moose hunts up there. So, but it's really, I mean, the DNR people are really noticing it, and I mean, it's an issue that I've not heard of just once. I've heard of it numerous times.
hang on,
So that's pretty crazy.
yeah. I wouldn't even imagining where to start at just seeing an animal like that or whatever. But have you ever heard of do you know who David Sinclair is? He's a Harvard professor, and I wanted to talk about this earlier, but it just hit me to bring it up now. But I think his daughter got Lyme disease, or somebody close to him got Lyme disease anyway. And his big thing right now is working on kind of reverse aging in humans. And he's actually developing, it's called a CRISPR system, CRISPR, I think is what it's called. And it's basically where you can change your genes using, I'm not a basic computer like what we're using today, but like, a supercomputer is what I would suppose. So, but what he was trying to promote is that because when his daughter got infected with a Lyme disease, I can't remember if she got it or she was getting treated or whatever, but he wanted to go in the computer and like change her genes so that Lyme disease wouldn't affect her, like the symptoms we were talking about earlier. So I was wondering if you really had any research on that or knew anything about it.
No, I haven't heard of that particular one.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of
It might
celebrity Hollywood people that have gotten Lyme disease,
yeah,
and brought to light even more. Because I mean, hey, Lyme ticks don't care skin color, sex, who you are, nothing. They're just looking for blood, so they don't. They're not picky about anything like that. But yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, it can happen, because actually, we're moving into more rural areas now than what we used to.
Yeah.
Deer populations are good. Some people blame it on climate change, getting a little warmer. So numerous factors that help ticks remain plentiful, which is a shame. We wish we could get rid of them, but it's really hard to, like you were saying, how do you do that? That's a tough thing to figure out, because normally, in your yard, in some of those areas, ticks are normally going to be in higher, tall grass. All right.
Right.
In somebody's yard, it's best to keep that as clean as you can. What I mean by that is a grass cut. They're gonna be in more shaded areas than out in the sunlight. So if you have a swing set, put that in a sunny area. Don't put it in the shade. You'll have less apt to get ticks. In the sunny area.
Sure.
Because they need the moisture. So cleaning up around wood piles. The leaf litter. Things like that, I mean, that's on my website even too. Here's another thing is too, that a lot of people don't realize. Let's say you're out in a tick area and you come back and you find a tick on you. Well, you found one, but there still may be others too. What you do, and let's say you did not treat your clothes. Here's what you do. You take your clothes and you put them in the dryer on high for about 15 minutes. The dry heat will kill the ticks. Then put them in the washer. You don't put them in the washer first because they can survive that. But dry heat, see, they need moisture and dampness to survive. They can't stand the dry heat, so that will kill them in a dryer.
Really? I would like the complete opposite on that.
Yep. No, you want to dry them and kill them first at about 15 minutes on high, and then wash them, your clothes.
Well, that makes so they can't stand heat. No heat.
No, they don't like the heat like that. Yeah, that's for sure. You're never going to see them in the middle of a playground, that's in the sun.
Yeah.
They're not going to be on a pavement. They need to have vegetation, as a buffer from the sunlight. So something like that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense now. I mean, yeah, I've never, like I said earlier, I don't know a lot about ticks, and I never really thought about. I thought always when you go into the woods, that's where they're at. But that makes sense why they're in the woods now and not out in direct heat.
Yeah,
like woods and vegetables.
You never talked to the tick terminator before.
That's true. I've never. Yeah, I mean, usually just come up this. Check your dog for ticks during the summer. Is like usually just how far is my conversation went with it. But
yeah.
But with your work, I mean, are you traveling around giving out this information, or how does it? What I think you spoke at a couple of conferences and stuff. So.
Yeah. I speak at conferences for the outdoor workers. I also have a couple of I made up for them last year because I work a lot with safety directors. Okay, think of a safety director at a power company. Okay,
sure.
His job is to keep his workers as healthy as possible. That way, they're more productive. Think of it, your buddy who's a lineman. Okay.
Yeah.
When he's dealing with death, life and death with any move he makes, he has to be at the top of his game. All right. So he's got to be sharp. He's got to, have all his faculties with him. So that's what they do. So about a year ago, I had a couple safety directors ask me, say, well, they're not going to spend hundreds of hours like I have done, in this. So they asked me, could you put together some little brief thing so that we could help when we're talking to our people and giving their workers, we'll call it the tick talk. In the true sense of the word, the tick talk. Okay. So I made this up a year ago. I called it the Tick Prevention Safety Guide. It's 4 pages of all kinds of different things, about prevention, about how ticks operate, stuff like that. And then this year I came up with the one I called The Hidden Cost of Lyme Disease. So I sent these out to my safety directors here too. And I send them out to anybody that wants one. And I tell people, you can make copies of it all you want. Send it to anybody. It's a information. It's not a sales page at all. Mm-hmm. At the end, I say, for more information to get stuff in like 1 sentence, but it's information. And this year, the hidden cost of Lyme disease, because a lot of people don't realize that the Lyme disease can just be so, we'll call it debilitating, where, think about it. You feel weak. Your vision may be going. Mm-hmm. You have the brain fog, the achy joints, flu-like symptoms. You can't work. And this sometimes, if it becomes chronic like that, that could go on for months and months. People can end up losing their jobs. You can't go on family vacation. People lose their marriages. So it goes, those are the hidden costs of Lyme disease that people don't think about.
Yeah.
So that's what I came up with this year. I want to do something easy. I'll probably write a book here in the future here too.
Nice.
With all of my different crazy experiences we didn't even talk about yet. They're funny ones.
How many years have you been doing this?
Well, I've been really doing the research, probably going almost 10 years now.
Okay.
I've really been getting into it in the last 4 or 5.
Okay.
And I never dreamed 5 years ago that I'd be doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of evolved into that,
Yeah, sure. So, podcasts seemed to, 5 years ago, podcasts were still kind of, I guess they were kind of, they're pretty big. They're big, but not like they are now. It seems like almost millions and millions of podcasts out there now. Almost everybody.
Podcasts are wonderful for people, as you're driving to listen to something like this, you listen to a topic that you want or listen to interesting shows like what you have.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. And you get a lot of good information for nothing,
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Like I've always been a podcast guy, and I know not everyone is one but this just, some people say they put them to sleep. Some people, they just don't, cared about listening to people talk. But yeah, you find something that's interesting, and I get stuff out of it. You learn little pearls and gems, and yeah. And like I've learned a few things like tonight, and hopefully other people are learning too, and they, pass it along,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Especially the stuff you don't even think about as far as like, Lyme disease and ticks and tick prevention. And because Lyme disease is pretty serious, and it seems like it's just getting more serious. So
it is. It's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. So, talking about your book, you said some crazy experiments. Let's hit on a couple of those or whatever you just talked about.
Well, crazy things that have happened to me. I remember back when I was when I first got married, I remember I moved my wife at that time I was living in Lower Michigan in a more of a city type of area. Okay. And that's where my wife was. Okay. And then we moved up to a very rural area in Upper Michigan. And she was basically a kind of like a city girl. Okay. And I'm this country guy and an outdoor guy. And I bring her to the woods, when we got married in 79. So I've been still married 43 years, still the same woman, still love. I'm blessed with that. I got a great woman. But anyways, I bring her up there, and that first summer, everything was new to her. We were living in my grandparents' house who had passed away. My parents hadn't moved there yet. They were going to move in a couple more years. So we're out there, 175 acres in the woods, okay? Beautiful field out there. We're having a picnic in the field, picture it, okay? And having a picnic. And after we're having to have our lunch, I'm looking at my wife and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she is so good looking, And guess what, man? There is nobody around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I got to get a little romance going here,
Okay. Okay.
see where this is going to go. And so I'm working on that. And all of a sudden she says, honey, she says, what are those little brown things crawling on the blanket? And the first time she'd ever seen a tick.
Uh-oh.
And I said, don't worry about those, especially right now. You know what I
mean? Don't get out of here. Don't worry about it.
Give me a few minutes, okay? So anyways, guess what? She worried about them. Oh, sure. And that was the end of my blanket party that day. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
So that was her first experience with ticks, because I'd seen them on my grandpa, grandpa's dog. We'd get them as we're kids, when I was a little 6, 7 years old, we'd go up and visit and we'd strip down and nothing. Mama come pick us ticks off us. And I thought it was kind of funny,
Yeah.
Never had a problem. And then, anyways, a couple years later, we did manage to have kids. Okay. And the kids would go out to visit grandpa because they lived then out to that beautiful spot in the woods, 175 acres. Okay. So they would go out to visit, and my mom figured, hey, I'm going to try to get the grandkids, used to ticks, because that's just part of living. This was in the mid 80s. So she figures she's going to pay them, say, a quarter for every tick they get on them. And sometimes that's not bad. I mean, so one day my son comes home with $1. He probably got 4 ticks that day. And his sister, she didn't want any, she didn't go into grass as much as my son did. So the next time he goes out there, he says, hey, Grandma gives me a quarter for every tick. I bet I could get 8 ticks. I could probably come home with $2 this time. You know what I mean? So Grandma starts figuring this out. Says, this little kid's gonna run me broke. So anyway, she ends up dropping it down to a dime, and eventually, she's had to scrap the story. So anyways, that's
wait. Why did she want them to get ticks on them?
She wanted them to get used to getting ticks on them because it's just part of being out there.
I'm with you now. Okay.
I mean, they have one 2-rut road out there in the woods. We called it Raspberry Lane.
Okay.
And one day they were out there picking raspberries, and their dog was with them out there. And that night they always picked the ticks off the dog. Well, that night they set a record. They picked off 163 ticks off the dog that night. Yeah, one night, one sitting.
One night.
163.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got another funny story too. Was fast forward another couple of years, I'm doing some work in some houses, underneath them. Let's say maybe floor joists, running wires, stuff like that for satellites and telephones. And I come home at night. I said, honey, I got a sliver on my back, right back here where you can hardly even touch it, And I said, you need to get a pin and you got to dig out the sliver. I can't reach it. So she gets a sliver. She's all ready to dig it out. And she says, honey, it's not a sliver. It's a tick. It had kind of buried itself into my skin there, which they don't normally do. And we tried all kinds of different things to get it out. We tried rubbing alcohol. We tried all the wives' tales, like Vaseline on there.
I've never heard of that.
She tried to get a match next to it without burning me, and that didn't work. So we finally went out and showed my mom and dad because they'd never seen one quite like that either. I ended up actually going to a doctor to get it out the proper way because it was really buried. It was very unusual. So anyways, doctor, what does he use? A fine tip tweezers. I thought, well, I could have done that, but that's how you learn, And I like to tell it to people that say those wives' tales, most of them don't work, and you're going to make the tick mad. You don't want to tick off a tick, and you want to take it off gently. So that's kind of what I learned from that,
There's a lot of good puns using the word tick that I never thought of until talking to you tonight. Just, never realized there's that many that you can just use, but I love it.
You got to have fun with it,
Yeah, man, for sure.
Laugh and learn.
Is it true? Like, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but if you pull the tick off and you grab it maybe by its stomach and the head's still attached, can it still, I guess suck blood out of you, or is it completely dead? Because I've heard about that before.
Once you pull it out of you?
Or when you if you pull it off and you just get all of the stomach and stuff and the head's still attached to the skin or your dog or whatever, is it still able to
I don't think
Or is
it's
it,
going to
or
be
is
able
it
to
really
survive
dead?
as much
Okay.
because you're kind of damaging it there too. And if you get that stuck in your skin a little bit, which is very common to have happen, just wash it off with soap and water, rubbing alcohol, something like that, and your body will naturally just, get rid of that stuff on its own in a few days.
Yeah. But
Uh,
you said they usually don't bury themselves into you, right?
no, not quite that. Usually they're flopping like a skin tank. You can flop them back and forth on
Right.
you, you know.
Why
But
would it,
that one
why would it,
that buried itself into my skin back there.
is that
Uh,
just because? I mean, why would a tick want to try to bury itself into somebody? Is that
I don't know why. It said something looked good there. So
okay?
I remember seeing another story here was a my wife says, "Hey, honey, you got to see this picture on Facebook," and it was a magnified picture. I said, "Okay, I give up, honey. What am I looking at?" She says, "Honey, what you're looking at is the white of somebody's eyeball. That little brown dot is a tick stuck to the white of their eyeball." You heard me. Crazy.
Yeah.
This was actually a lineman in the state of Kentucky a couple of years ago. He was out doing his job,
Sure.
everything right, safety glasses, everything, and moving some brush around. And this little baby tick flicked up and ended up getting stuck in the white of his eyeball. They didn't know it was a tick. So they tried washing off. They did everything right. And eventually, after a couple hours, they couldn't get it off. So they took to an eye doctor, and he takes a picture of it. And he said, "Yeah, that's a tick." And he pulled it off, and he's okay. They gave him antibiotics just to be safe, and everything. But you never know where they're going to get. I mean, think about this: a tick will get stuck on any place where there is skin.
Yeah.
So I say, ladies, yep, down there. Men, yep, down there too. Any place. So that's why it's important to do a tick checks. You may want a mirror down a place like that. I've heard of places out in Vermont or New Hampshire. I can't remember where it was. That it could have been a state, maybe like a DNR place, where they literally have rooms for their people to come in at night, and they're I mean, like the size of an old-fashioned phone booth, okay? Probably small like that. It's all mirrors. So they can bend over and look every place for ticks with all mirrors. Just to do their tick check.
Yeah. I was trying to think if I don't think I've ever had one on me, right? If I have, I can't remember. But can you really not feel 'em if they get on you? I mean, is that, I know you got to check, but I mean, usually you can feel like an itch or something, but is it usually just no feeling at all? Is that why you
A
don't?
lot of times you cannot feel them. And you can't even hardly feel when they bite you either. Because God gave them the special little saliva that I'll just say it like this, they kind of spit on there. And so they kind of cover up the feeling of them actually bit. Because you don't even hardly feel them when you get bit. Like a mosquito, you can feel when a mosquito bites you.
Sure.
In most times. But you can't normally feel when a tick bites you.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I guess that makes sense then.
Yeah. That's just pretty crazy. Think of all you learned tonight, and all your listeners, how much they learned about ticks tonight too. Or whenever they listen to this, I should say.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, maybe we should just take it home on that one right there,
Sure.
All the learning and stuff. So before we get off here, Brian, why don't you, I know you spoke a bit about your website, but how do they find you, find a website, learn more, anything you want to share, all that good stuff?
Yeah, they can go to my website. My website is called The Tick Terminator. They go on there, they can see some products, but there's a whole bunch of good information on there too. All kinds of good information about ticks and a lot of stuff I talked about here about Lyme disease and so on. They can get products on there too, which is very important to use. Yeah, they can get that kind of stuff there.
I think I want to go on there and do I made a little shopping list while we were talking. Go on there, get some repellent, make sure I'm covered. I got to eat that meat, man.
Yeah.
Just for that thing. So
and tell your buddy about it too. I don't know if I've talked to him wherever he works as a lineman there, if he works for a co-op or a municipality or whatever.
it's one of the major power line companies down through this area. So I don't know. I'll tell you off the air. I don't really want to put out.
No, that's fine. No, it's fine. Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, again, Brian, thanks, man. This was awesome. I appreciate you teaching me stuff, man.
Well, thanks for having me. As you can tell, I enjoy talking about ticks, and I like to do speaking in different places too. I got to charge for that, of course.
Of course.
But it's but nobody talks about ticks like the tick terminator.
Well, if you write that book, man, if you get that book wrote, man, well, maybe we'll get you back on here and we can take a deep dive in down that and some more areas or something. So,
all right, man.
All right, good. All right, folks, we're out of here. Good fight. Good night. Check yourself always.